Hello, hello, hello to all of my or some of my uh, fans or whatever you are. Some of my viewers, some that are um, interested in learning more about Daniel Holtzclaw's case. So, Robski, thank you so much for being here. Oh, you're so nice to say that you wouldn't miss it. Um, that really means a lot to me. And Jazz Naz is here. Thank you, Jazz Naz. And Alice in Wrongful Conviction Land. Thank you. Alice is feeling under the weather, so I don't think she'll be joining me on the panel tonight. I know that Cherie, or I don't recall, is having kind of the same issues that I'm having, and that is some technical difficulties, if you will. I don't know if for me it's because it's so freaking hot. So my equipment is just tired and worn out and not wanting to do anything or not. I don't really know, but that seems to be the issue for me anyway. Um, I've been all summer long. I've been trying to put like ice packs underneath my laptop so that because it gets so hot when I run my software, my editing software. Oh, I'm probably guitaring here. Sorry, folks. It probably. Thanks, Jazz. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's. I think that my editing software. Well, I probably just need a new laptop. This one just isn't. It just isn't powerful enough for all of the cool stuff I like to do. So, um, I. Uh, I someday in the future I'll be getting a new laptop and working my figuring out how my second monitor works and all that good stuff, and I'll just be like a pro. But for now, I'm stuck with what I have, and hopefully, it's it's doable, and it just doesn't want to act right though when it needs to be. So, unfortunately, that makes me look bad, makes me look inept or incapable or something. So maybe I just need to start working on it sooner and earlier, so that it doesn't slow me down when it's actually showtime. But I really appreciate all of you that have decided to wait it out and be here with me to hold my hand virtually. I really appreciate it. Um, I think I mentioned, and I could be wrong because I've already said things, but I think I mentioned that Alice in wrongful conviction land is a little bit under the weather, and so she's not going to be joining me on panel. And now that I'm saying that, I remember saying it already. Um, so you guys are just gonna. It's just going to be me for now. I'm hoping that Jack will be joining me soon. I know he's got a ton of stuff that he's working on, and I know that Cherie is also having technical difficulties. So Jazz now says that, let's see here. Um, looks like Cherie's. Jazz now says you could get a cooling pad for your laptop. I will send you some links on Discord. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jazz, because I need to do something. These these ice packs aren't lasting quite long enough, so that would be awesome. So thank you for sharing that. And Cherie, are you with me? Even though you're muted.
I am. Yes, I am. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
We have Cherie, and somewhere, probably in the background of Cherie's home, is my dear friend Rose, who I just have grown to love over the last couple of years. And Darkside, welcome. Thank you so
Never
much.
mind.
Is Rose there, Cherie?
Sir,
Oh,
Oh, hey Rose, how's it going?
I'll just doing my dishes.
Okay, well, good, good. That's good because Cherie's got a lot of work to do. I need a lot of help from her today.
he asks how Thorn's doing.
Yes, how so I know that the foul play group knows the story about roses and thorns and whatnot. I don't know if I've mentioned it here, but if I have, just bear with me one more time. When Cherie and her husband and I were in Manitowoc, Wisconsin this past July, um, Cherie's husband, his real name, everybody else calls him Jim. But I have a special name for him, and I call him Rose because during one of our little picture gathering events, I wanted him to stand between Cherie and I, and they didn't understand why, and so I don't know because I kind of have some I'm doing a podcast. Come in. You have to be quiet. What, babe? This is my little granddaughter. Hold on one second. What? No, because I'm doing a podcast right now. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Sorry, I need you to be quiet, okay? That was my little granddaughter, my Nini Bug, little 6-year-old. She's bored. The older kids are busy doing stuff, and she's not quite included yet. Some of the things. Anyway, so I wanted Jim to stand between Cherie and I, and he decided to get silly and funny and make this little joke that he said he shouted out during the pictures, "I'm Rose and these are my thorns." So he had a thorn on each side. So now Cherie is thorn 1 and I'm thorn 2 and Jim is Rose. Did I tell that wrong, Cherie? I probably did.
No, you got it right, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much something like that. So yeah, but I can't possibly thank Jim enough for all of the patience that he most of the time showed with Cherie and I, because we were silly. We were all three silly. I'm not even going to try to say it was just me and Cherie, because he was just as silly as we were. We had some of the best laughs and some of the best times that I can remember having had in quite a while. Rose between two thorns. That's right. Jim was a rose between two thorns. So super, super patient, super, super kind. And he drove us everywhere we wanted to go, and sometimes twice, sometimes even 3 times. But he was really a good sport about it. Robsky says, just Rhonda, I think a ventilated laptop base, the ones with big integrated fans, will be better than ice packs. Ice packs cause condensation, not good. Oh, so I should remove the ice. Maybe that's the problem I'm having now. I have a towel around the ice pack so that and the towel is dry. Hopefully that's okay. But where is Damien Thorne? I don't know who Damien Thorne is. Yeah, it was really sweet, Jazz. It was a lot of fun. He was a great sport and a great team player, and he was so awesome. So I appreciate him very much, and Cherie very much, for so many reasons that I can't even mention here. Both of them are like they're very special to me, and I just love them both, and I appreciate everything they've done for me. So let's see. We have Dark Side has come in, and I think I mentioned that. So and Robsky, he's my official like button namer. And he says, don't forget that the like button is baked Alaska flavor today. Oh my God. Do we all need some baked Alaska? I guess depending on what part of the world you live in, we are baking over here. Where I live in Utah, it's insanely hot. So I'll take that baked Alaska. Thank you, Robsky. That's a fabulous flavor. So, and I also realized I thought that normally I try, and I know that I've been really Damien. Oh, Damien. I didn't know the last name was Thorne. I love that movie, The Omen, Robsky says. Damien Thorne. No, you're not old. I saw that movie when I was a youngster, so I just didn't realize the last name was Thorne. I just remember the evil little face on that little monster. So yeah, Damien Thorne is not allowed in my world. Catnip, thank you so much for being here and dropping those links for me, because I suck at it in my own channel for sure. And so I appreciate you, and I love you, Kat, and I'm so happy to see you in the chat today. Anyway, so I was going to say something, and then I got my own self distracted, because I do that a lot. I distract myself all the time. Cherie, do you know what I was getting ready to say?
Can't help you. I don't know. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. When we were in Wisconsin, we were in each other's heads all the time, and now you can't tell me what I was going to say. Oh boy. Okay, that's all right. I probably already said it, or I'll say it eventually or something, so it's all good. So I kind of mentioned here a little bit that I had some news out of Oklahoma City. It's not new news. I mean, it's a couple, maybe it's about 2 weeks old at this point. But for those of you who don't follow Oklahoma's doings like I do, I live in Utah, but I'm more familiar with what's going on in Oklahoma than I am my own state. My own state is fairly calm and peaceful. And, you know, we have our problems. We certainly have our crimes, no doubt about it. We're not immune to that just because it's the state where the Mormons all live. It's the most common question that I get asked. But so we have our issues and our problems. But I have to say, I have never, ever heard about the massive amounts of corruption in Utah like I've heard of in Oklahoma City, the entire state of Oklahoma. And I know that most of you here are familiar with the corruption in Wisconsin and Manitowoc and all of those places. I know that most of you have come from that case to begin with, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. And yes, Wisconsin is horrible. It's a horrible, corrupt place. I shouldn't say it's horrible. I should say that many places in Wisconsin, because it's very beautiful there, to say the least. But there are so many corruption cases that I'm learning of. And I just had to give some bad news to someone today regarding a FOIA request for Wisconsin. And this person had asked us to see if we could get a recording of his of a case that he was involved in or part of or knew of, that he was close to get the recording of an interrogation. And I had to give him the bad news today that we received the FOIA response from the ORR, and they said that there was no recording done of that interview or interrogation, whatever you like to call it. And I hated so badly to give that news to him, but that's the kind of stuff that we're running into in Wisconsin. Jack, I know you guys are all familiar with Jack. He's run into a lot of brick walls trying to get different FOIA requests filled that we know there's got to be records of a lot of these things, but there's always some excuse that he gets thrown at him. And kind of the same thing in Oklahoma. And I'll talk about it a little bit in particular tonight in the person the accuser that we're going to talk about a little bit in a little bit. Anyway, so but Oklahoma is horrible. Anyway, we have been working, those of us who are working with Daniel's team our little team to try to help Daniel in his case. He's got a civil case, a civil trial coming up. I'm pretty sure it's October 22nd. And so we're right now in the throes of trying to get, uh, uh, you know, all of the evidence that we can find, and different things that we can find that we know would help Daniel in his civil suit. As I've mentioned in other lives before, several of the women have dropped out of the civil case. I'll try to remember off the top of my head. Sherry Ellis, who was huge, Daniel was found guilty on her charges. Adara Gardner, who the whole thing really kind of sits around, is her case. She was the juvenile at the time who alleges that she was raped by Daniel Holtzclaw, and hers is the only DNA that was ever discovered or admitted to at trial that was found on Daniel's uniform pants. So those two have dropped out. And Cherie is going to have to help me. I believe Carla Raines.
Yeah, yes.
And I think there's one more. Was there a total of 4 or just the 3?
Well, I thought I saw somewhere that Rosetta might have, or maybe considering it. I'm not sure.
Rosetta, yeah, that's a Rosetta Grate, who we're going to talk about tonight. And Robsky, no, nobody wants you to shut up, because I love your comments and your wit and your humor. So you just keep on being witty and funny. We love it. But the likes will be appreciated if we can get 100 likes. I'd be happy if I could get 100 people to watch my lives, much less get 100 likes. But everybody needs to go make a sock account and subscribe to my channel and like all the videos. help me get to my 500 subs so that I can at least have a community page, which, by the way, I don't even see on YouTube anymore. So I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But anyway, so that's kind of what what we're really focusing on is getting Daniel, finding the evidence, because we have it, we know it's there. It's getting the plaintiffs to allow it, which has become the big joke, funny enough. But one of the big thorns, speaking of thorns, Cherie, one of the big problems in Oklahoma is been the DA, the district attorney, the current district attorney, who is David Prater. He announced, I believe, sometime early this year or late last year, that he was not running for DA in 2022. And we were all, yay, thank God, because he is just an ugly, hateful, mean man. He's just, and so spiteful, and he's just so much revenge and hatred in his heart and his head and is coming out of his mouth. It's really gross. But we knew that when he was not running, we knew that it was going to be Galen Gigger, the ADA, one of the ADAs, that would be running for that position. And the problem with that is that Galen Gigger is just as bad as David Prater. And so, in fact, I have a couple of videos in my, I don't know, my whatever it's called, vault, library, whatever, and about Galen Gigger and just how dishonest he is. Galen Gigger told the jury in his closing arguments rebuttal at Daniel's trial. He told the jury that they're basically, I can't remember the exact words, Cherie. Can you remember the exact words? I'm so flustered tonight because I'm so hot and sweaty.
That's something to the effect that the DNA on Daniel's pants came from the vaginal walls. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's the
He
one.
has no evidence to back that up. But
Yeah, it came from the vaginal walls from the 17-year-old accuser, Adara Gardner, who, as I just mentioned, has dropped her claim in the civil suit, no longer a part of the civil suit. weird, right? Because it was her evidence, her alleged evidence of DNA found on his DNA found on her that or her DNA found on his pants that allegedly made the claim that he had actually raped her. He flat out lied to the jury, and there were jury members who said after the trial was over and the verdict was rendered that it was the DNA evidence that sold some of them. Others were chose guilty because they were so afraid of what was going to happen as far as racial backlash in the community. But anyway, so there's a few videos. Oh, thanks, Kat. That's awesome. You're always on the ball. Kat has dropped a link to one of the, how much does Galen Gigger lie? He lies all the time. If he's talking, he's lying, in my opinion. Anyway, he was running for DA. Back to the story, Rhonda. He was running for DA as we knew he would. And they had to have a runoff election. They had an election, when was it? In June. And he lost by, I don't even know how many points. 30%, I believe he lost to Kevin Calvey, who is another Democrat running for, or Republican running for DA. Not thrilled with him, but anybody was better than Galen Gigger, because if we're going to get any help from the courts in Daniel's post-conviction, we need a clean, mostly as much as it's possible honest district attorney, and Galen Gigger was not going to be it. So they had the election in June. He lost. Galen Gigger lost by at least 30%, if I'm not mistaken, behind Kevin Calvey. And so they had to have, but Kevin Calvey was only like 7 votes shy of getting the 50% plus one thing. And so they had to have a runoff. It was 7 votes shy of beating Gigger in the election in June. So they had to have a runoff. They had the runoff in August, and Galen Gigger lost by a fucking landslide, you guys. A landslide. Over 30%, close to 40%, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he lost the election, the primary election on. So, huh?
Are you busy?
I'm doing a podcast.
It's sending people?
Yeah, I'm talking to people. Do you want to talk to the people? Say hi.
Hi.
That's my other granddaughter. What's up, Liv?
Well, since you're doing a podcast, I was wondering if you could. No, you're kind of busy.
I am very busy. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think mom and dad must not be home because the kids are coming in and asking me lots of questions. So I apologize for that. But he lost. So Galen Gigger is not somebody that we have to worry about as far as post-conviction. Now, the woman that we do hope will win the election in November is Vicki Behenna. She's a Democrat, and I am so not political. It's crazy, but unfortunately, we have to talk the political side of this kind of crap. So anyway, she's running on the Democratic ticket. I really, really hope that she wins. She's got so much what is the word I'm looking for? Help me out, Cherie. It's not a curriculum vitae, but her experience is really, really vast. She's worked for the Innocence Project. And one of the biggest things that I think is good for us, if Vicki Behenna wins this election in November, one of her own sons was wrongfully convicted of a crime. And so we know that she has an idea of what that's like, and how important it is to get the truth out in a post-conviction situation. So maybe if I can get some information, I'll get some information on her and Kevin Calvey and try to put it in my description at some point later. But yes, watching the Oklahoma elections very closely. So enough of all that. Was there anything else that we had going on in Oklahoma, Sheree? Seems like there was, but I can't remember.
I I can't think off the top of my head. No, I'll try to think about it though.
It seemed like there was something else. We know that Giger lost because well, we don't know, but we're assuming that Giger lost because I have another video about Galen Giger in my videos that talks about him. Now, Galen Giger is a prosecutor who prosecutes sex crimes, or any crimes, obviously, but he works for organizations that deal with sex crimes and crimes against children, sexual assaults against children, just all those nasty, horrible things. And of course, we know that he prosecuted Daniel on sex crimes that he didn't commit, but he's just so proud of himself. And I hope and pray that the things that he is doing for the children, to protect the children in Oklahoma County, I hope and pray that he is doing the right and the just thing for them, because he certainly didn't do it for Daniel and other cases that I know that he's worked on. Robsky says, the folks are out and you're busy. Have you seen what happens in Home Alone? Just right. Yeah. Yeah, I think mom and dad are, and they're old enough to take care of themselves, or the older ones take care of the little one. But when I could tell there was something sneaky about to try to happen. So hopefully they will behave themselves so I can get through this. I think, Catnet, I think Cherie's giving you the names in Discord. Vicki Behenna and Kevin Calvey. And those are going to be the two that Oklahoma is going to be running an election for in November. So anyway, so if he runs, his whole thing is he wants to make sure that, no sex crimes go unheard and untouched and unprosecuted and unconvicted. He wants to make sure he gets them all, and, especially the children. And I agree. Hey, we all agree with that, right? But here's one of the kickers. Galen Giger has a son, and I can't remember what year this took place. His son was, I believe, 16. He has two sons. The younger of the two sons, I think he was 16 years old at the time. And his name's Jackson. And I'll bet Catnet will be able to find the video for this. But his son is still accused of sexually assaulting three young girls. One was only 12. And the other two were teenagers. And Giger's son was, I believe, 16 or 17 at the time that these crimes were taking place. And yes, he is a liar and a tosser. He is a tosser. I love tosser. Oh, thanks, Alice. I appreciate that.
And it's all a bunch of bollocks. It's another thing.
Bollocks. He's a tosser, and it's all everything he says is a bunch of bollocks. Yes. So yeah, he has a 16-year-old son, and these girls actually filed charges against Galen Giger, his wife, and his son for these sexual assaults, and against Galen Giger and his wife, because they failed to supervise their teenage son and allowed this to occur. Well, please don't be shocked when I tell you that that got swept under the rug, and just about as quick as those charges were filed, they were dismissed with prejudice, without prejudice. I got the two mixed up. Cherie, my attorney friend, help me. Whichever one it was is the one where they can bring charges again later, but for now they've been dismissed
Without prejudice.
without prejudice.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, the charges were dismissed without prejudice. Weird, right? So bizarre. But it's really not, because there is so much documentation from upper people in the government, I guess you would say, in the Oklahoman government, who have proof that excuse me, who have proof that these people, Prater and Giger, found a way to get the son's charges, to disappear them, to disappear the charges. And there's a whole bunch of corruption just surrounding that. And this is Galen Giger's son. Now, in the Republican debate before the original election in June, Kevin Calvey called Galen Giger out on this. I have that recorded. I have that debate recorded. I should play it at some point. But Kevin Calvey called Galen Giger out on this very thing in the debate, in public, on stage, with the microphone in front of however many people were in the audience and however many people were watching. And Galen Giger went batshit crazy on Kevin Calvey. It was insane. So that's the kind of man Galen Giger is. That's the kind of man that was running for district attorney. And it's just, there's no possible way that Daniel would ever stand a chance. And listen, there's still every opportunity that every possibility that it could still be swept under the rug. But I know that at least one mother of these three girls is really, really fighting to try to get evidence that's been lost. I used my air quotes. She's just got so much proof and so much, emails and letters and different things that she has proof of, but she can't get it heard. Not as long as David Prater's in there and Galen Giger's a part of it. So now keep in mind, if you remember, I've got this whole other thing planned tonight and I'm going off on the Oklahoma corruption, but it's important. Yes, that's the one it is, Kat. Thank you so much. Breaking news: sexual assault committed by Galen Giger's son. And that might be a title that's, very presumptuous, but there's proof and evidence by these young girls that it happened. So, you say what you want. You can tell me I'm spreading false news or news without, verification or conviction or whatever, but there's truth to it. Trust me. So if you get a chance, after you've recovered from hearing my voice from tonight, go listen to the breaking news about Galen Giger's son. Now, for those of you who haven't been watching my channel for very long, a year ago in March, the end of March last year, there was other breaking news in Oklahoma County. The judge who presided over Daniel's trial, who sent Daniel to prison for 263 years, last March was accused of what the articles say were serious sexual assaults against female ADAs in David Prater's office, and I think that they mentioned two female defense attorneys as well. So that's a whole other thing, and we have talked about it. And I know Kay and I and Cherie have talked about it. Talked about it a little bit here and there on some of the other podcasts, but apparently no charges are going to be filed against him from Oklahoma County. But OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, is still conducting their investigation, which is really bizarre because it's been over a year now since he was accused and then resigned. I believe I want to say April 1st or 2nd, I believe, of that same year, Judge Henderson resigned. And I've got videos on him too. So yes, my channel is dedicated to Daniel for the most part, but it's not doing any justice to Daniel if I don't talk about the other items of corruption that are going on in Oklahoma County. Henderson, there's already one. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Hashhagen, I believe, is his last name, or Fort, Aaron Fort. He got his verdict overturned and is getting a new trial because Judge Henderson and the ADA, the female ADA who prosecuted him, were having a extramarital affair during this guy's trial. And so he already got his overturned and he's getting a new trial. There's another man whose last name is Hashhagen. His first name slips my mind right at the moment, but he's also, it hasn't been decided yet, but same circumstances. We believe that he's going to also get a new trial because of the same thing. So it's just not you couldn't pay me enough money to live in Oklahoma County. There's just no way. So yeah, and Alice in Wrongful Conviction Land says the only way it can change is if the people of Oklahoma vote, vote, vote. Absolutely right. And I think they've got to start now with Prater, with Gigger, making sure that he's not going to be the DA. So, wow, I said a lot. Trying to think. I think that's the only big news that I wanted to share from Oklahoma that I promised in my title. So now tonight, though, we are talking about a woman named Rosetta Grate. Let me find this video. Because of my editing software getting all hot and bothered, I was not able to do all the editing on this that I wanted to do. And it was going to be a really great editing, and I'm still going to edit it. I'm still going to do it because it's just so darn good. But I'll finish editing it, and then I'll put a link to it in Discord, and possibly if I can get it done in time, I'll put a link to it in this video description later, if I can get it finished. Depends on the weather and the whatever I can get to cool my laptop off on. But I'm going to share with you what little bit I did manage to get edited, however you say that word. And we can listen to the whole thing, but about 3/4 of it I wasn't able to finish editing with all my fun stuff that I love doing. You guys, if you know me long enough, you know that I love editing and I love creating videos, and whether I'm good at it or not isn't even a thing to me. I don't care if I'm good at it, but I love doing it, and every time I create a new video I learn new stuff. So let me find this. And what we'll do, I'll kind of give you guys the choice, since I've been yakking this whole time. We can either listen to the whole thing, even though it's not finished being edited, or I'll play up to what I have, and then I'll finish editing it this weekend, and we'll play the rest of it. I know it's so hard to say, ed. Thank you, Alice. I think I finally taught myself how to say corroborate for the most part.
Yay!
I've been practicing that because over in Foul Play we've been doing videos, and we've been reading different what do you want to the PCR from Zellner and different things that we've been reading, depositions and whatnot. And it just seems like every time it was my turn to read, that was where the word corroborate came up the most. So it became kind of another running joke, that they saved all those parts in the readings for me. But I practiced, you guys. I was practicing. That's pretty bad that I've had to practice saying that stupid word so that I don't look and sound like such a fool every time I come, because that's a pretty big deal in law, apparently. You have to corroborate things.
Yeah, but I've got to say, you're not the only one that does public, videos and stuff that says it the other way. So,
Oh, really? Oh, good. I would love to meet those people. We need to form a what's it called, a support group. Yeah, we need a support group. Yes, I said it 9 times, you guys. That was the first time that we read the PCR from Zellner that day. And inexplicable Susan, read pages and pages and pages. And I swear to God, she didn't have to say that word not one time. And then Jack asked me to read, and 9 times, 9 freaking times, I would look at it and go, like, I would just start I would just, like, my heart would just start, like I was going to have a freaking anxiety attack. It was ridiculous. And so anyway, I started practicing saying that because it's embarrassing. Dark side, when Rhonda says it, the audience is saying it with her too. Yeah, they're all mouthing it for me, hoping I can get it right. I was set up, Kat. I agree. I was set up. Oh, God. But anyway, so I did. I started practicing in that. And now apparently I can't say edited. Edited. Edited? Is that right? It's ridiculous. A corroborate. Yeah, that's what I need. Gosh. Geez, yeah, it was a conspiracy. I could have, and I just felt, and when I was reading that PCR that day, I just felt so much like everybody, Susan and Jack and everybody else, was just going, like, chuckling at me. But I did it. I managed to get through it. It was awesome. Yes, a conspiracy. I have become more, I'm starting to believe in some conspiracies at this point in everything that we do and everything I do and read and study and investigate and research. There are conspiracies. So anyway, enough of all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start this video, and you'll see when my laptop quit letting me edit. And if you want, we can just go ahead and just listen to the rest of it. It's going to be about another probably 20 minutes or more and it's from Bates podcast. So it's, something you can go listen to anytime you want to, and not just sit and look at a blue screen on my computer or, on YouTube, because that's kind of what it'll be at some point. But anyway, I'll pause at some point and see how you guys feel about going forward, if you just want to finish listening to it on your own later. But in the meantime, get questions ready. That I do not believe that the earth is flat, Robsky. That's one I'm not buying into for sure. Kat says could be. Could be, Fred. Could be. Okay, here we go. We're going to start Rosetta Grate, who has a crazy story about what she says Daniel Holtzclaw did to her. So here we go.
Go all the way back, Rosetta. All right. I can't help it. one do you want? You don't care?
I guess I could run the computer.
What's up with that hair?
What's up with that face? Let me see. Well, your side shot, you're doing this.
Yeah, like you're like the thinker on the toilet.
Really?
All right. You probably don't have a clue why we're here.
You went, are you the two who came by Daddy's?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out, how'd y'all know? Is he confessing?
We're just good detectives.
Cause I mean, I haven't.
What'd your daddy tell you? What'd your dad tell you?
Y'all came by, well, I mean, I told him and my dude,
You told what?
told my daddy and my guy I live with.
Willie?
Yeah,
He ain't very nice.
no. No, he's mad cause he's still mad about that.
About that? Well, he told us he doesn't know who you are and you don't live there and all that
Oh,
stuff.
he think cause of my warrant.
Oh. So do you live with him in Culberson?
Yeah.
Is that where you live?
Yes. And I haven't been out in like 4 or 5 years.
Okay, let me tell you, while I was searching for you, everybody was telling me you were off on the dope in a bad way.
What's the bad way?
You
I
were just,
relapsed.
yeah, okay.
Are you clear right now
Yeah.
then?
Are you clear and you're
Yeah.
thinking straight and everything? And I also want to let you know that the DA's office is offering rehab if you want it.
Yeah, I don't want it. I just put the application on my
What's that?
It's a rehab, but wait 3 hours.
And I muted too. Oh, geez. I can't remember why I paused, but I know there was something I wanted to pause for to talk about. So let me get back on that and see if I can.
I'm just trying to figure out, how'd y'all know? Is he confessing?
We're just good detectives.
Cause I mean, I haven't.
What'd your
told
daddy
y'all
tell
about
you?
it.
What'd your dad tell you?
Y'all came by, well, I mean, I told him and my dude,
You told what?
told my daddy and my guy I live with.
Willie?
Yeah,
He ain't very nice.
no. No, he's mad cause he's still mad about that.
About that? Well, he told us he doesn't know who you are and you don't live there and all that
Oh,
stuff.
he think cause of my warrant.
Oh. So do you live with him in Culberson?
Yeah.
Is that where you live?
Yes. And I haven't been out in like 4 or 5 years.
Okay, let me tell you, while I was searching for you, everybody was telling me you were off on the dope in a bad way.
What's the bad way?
You were
I
just,
relapsed.
yeah, okay.
Are you clear right now then?
Yeah.
Are you clear and you're
Yeah.
thinking straight and everything? And I also want to let you know that the DA's office is offering rehab if you want it.
Okay, now I remember what it was that I wanted to just pause there for. So sorry, and I was talking and I was trying to pause and talking and I forgot I had muted my mic. I apologize. It's like a Monday for me today. So so she says, Kim Davis says, now this is the first time they're meeting Rosetta Grate, her and Detective Valerie Holman, her partner. This is the first time they're seeing Rosetta Grate. This is the first time they're getting to interview her about her alleged sexual assault by a police officer. Yet she's telling her that the DA is offering rehab. Already telling Rosetta Grate that the DA is offering you rehab. If you want it, you can have rehab. The DA is offering that to you. She hasn't even interviewed her yet, doesn't even have a story yet about what allegedly might have happened to her. But she's telling her the DA is offering rehab, whatever you want, whatever you need. Yes, lots of bribery goes on. Bribery, promises that are made, and they claim that none of that happened. That nobody's charges got dismissed because of because they agreed to testify. That is all over the place at trial and everything else. They asked some of the accusers in trial during their testimony, "Have you been promised to have your charges dropped? Your existing or your charges that you've whatever the word is, accrued since the accusation." And there is evidence, I'm telling you guys, there is lots of evidence for a lot of these accusers, Rosetta Grate being one of them, Adara Gardner being another one, whose charges just get dismissed, just dismissed. And some of these charges are some, especially with the Dara Gardner. That girl had some pretty hefty charges against her, felonies, and they're just dismissed. And some of the questions that were asked at trial. Oh, well, that's in a whole different county. What makes you think that we have any power to get charges dismissed in another county? Well, the fact that Galen Gigger's son's charges were swept away, hidden, disappeared from Oklahoma County, and there is evidence that it was pushed up to a different county at one point, Gigger's kids' charges. Absolutely, that can happen, and it does happen, and it did happen in this case. So when she says the DA is offering you rehab, well, how is the DA offering her rehab? Oh, I know, because he got her name from the list, no matter what they want to try to call it, from the list of women who they were going to target for sexual assaults perpetrated by Daniel Holtzclaw. That's how. So I just wanted to pause and explain that to you, because it's just awfully funny, awfully strange. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I just put the application on my.
What's that?
It's a rehab, but 3 hours away though.
Are you interested in
I
rehab?
put an application in there the same day it came in.
So you've already done that on your own?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. What's
The-
your
you know
choice
what?
of drug?
Crack and weed.
Crack and weed.
Yeah, I'm tired.
This is episode 20. In this episode, I will explore how Rosetta Grate got involved in this case, the details of her allegations, my impressions of the investigation into those allegations, and what substantiates, negates, or otherwise casts doubts on those assertions. I will be covering all of the relevant details in this episode. Additionally, the transcript for episode 19 is posted to that episode's homepage at holtzclawtrial.com, along with the video from both of those jailhouse interviews. So, if you want to go back and watch or read those interviews for yourself, I invite you to do so. With all of that out of the way, let's dive right into this episode. Rosetta Grate told detectives Kim Davis and Valerie Homan that she encountered Patrol Officer Daniel Holtzclaw while she was in the area of Northeast 14th and Jordan Avenue. She doesn't recall the date. She thinks it was the end of April or the beginning of May of 2014. She does, however, remember it was still daylight outside when all of this happened. Grate, an admitted drug addict who often engages in street-level prostitution to fund her addiction, claimed she was relapsing at the time, and that she was out getting high and turning tricks when Patrol Officer Daniel Holtzclaw rolled up on her. Grate told Detective Davis she had just smoked some crack cocaine, and that while she was headed home, she was also trying to catch another prostitution customer, or date as she calls it. Officer Holtzclaw slows to a stop, rolls down his window, and tells her to hold up right there for just a minute. He gets out of his patrol car and begins to talk to Grate. He inquires as to what she's up to, why she's loitering about in that area, really just general cop on patrol in a high crime area kind of stuff. Grate says she was up front and honest with the officer, telling him straight up that she was getting high, even allegedly going so far as to admit as to what house is selling her drugs. Grate claims that she told the officer that she was relapsing, had been out doing things she shouldn't be doing, hanging out in areas she shouldn't be in, and was fighting with her boyfriend, who was mad about her drug use. Holtzclaw searched Grate's purse and found a small glass crack pipe. She says he made her break it. She doesn't go into detail, but it's a pretty common occurrence that officers who encounter such paraphernalia have the individual toss it to the ground and then grind it into pieces with their foot. Holtzclaw places Grate's purse on the top of his patrol car, has Grate take a seat in the back, and he gets in the driver's side. She claims Holtzclaw never bothered to run her for warrants or to verify her identity. Grate explained to the officer that she was headed home, but that she kept getting solicited for prostitution and getting dropped back off in the area. Holtzclaw then offered to take Grate to the house that she was living in with her boyfriend, in the 600 block of Culbertson. During the drive, Grate said that the officer asked her about her prostitution activities, specifically what sex acts she performed on her customers. Grate replied that she most likely, quote, gives head. When they arrived, Grate claims that Holtzclaw didn't just stop on the street and let her out. Instead, he pulled up into the driveway like he lived there or like it was an everyday occurrence. As Grate got out of the patrol car, she turned around and looked in the back seat for her purse. That's when she realized Holtzclaw never gave it back to her. She looks towards the roof of the patrol car, but it was gone. It had been left there and fallen off en route to her home. Grate said Officer Holtzclaw offered to go back and look for her purse, but later testified that she told him not to even bother, even though she claims that purse contained her driver's license, some makeup, her bus pass, and other personal possessions. Regardless, she then began to walk inside the house and noticed Officer Holtzclaw was following her. She said she assumed he was trying to verify she actually lived there. So, she goes inside. Officer Holtzclaw follows. Grate said she then does some sort of an impromptu tour for the officer. This is the living room, this is the kitchen, this is the den, that's the upstairs. With that, Grate says she walks upstairs to the second floor. There, she points out her boyfriend's bedroom. This is Will's room, and this over there, that's my bedroom. Grate says that at this point, Officer Holtzclaw tells her to have a seat on the edge of her bed. She complies, still allegedly not questioning why the officer is inside her home. Holtzclaw then allegedly starts unzipping his pants and replies, quote, "This is better than county." Grate knew what she had to do: perform oral sex on the officer or go to jail.
Okay, excuse me. I believe it's at this point that my laptop completely shut down on me to cool off. It needed a baked Alaska, right, Robski? So you can hear the rest of the podcast. I did cut some parts out that weren't necessary to the to what we're listening to. Or at this point, I will finish it. I will finish editing it over the next week, over the weekend, and you can watch it that way. And we can just, Cherie and I can kind of tell you about the rest of her allegations. Or you can just watch the blue screen and listen to Brian Bates talk. It's up to, I mean, there's not very many of you in chat, but if you want to go ahead and just listen to it and watch a blue screen, put a 1 in the chat. If you'd rather wait until I finish editing it and grab the link later for it, put a 2. Alice, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I know. 1. Robski wants to listen. Kit wants to listen. Alice wants to listen. Get a couple more listens through, and we'll just go ahead and play it. All right, what do you think, Cherie? Should we just go ahead and play it through and just let folks watch a blue screen? The blue screen of death?
I say the ones win so far, so yeah.
Yep, so far, yeah. All right, we'll just go ahead and listen to it. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask a question or make a comment, and we'll pause if we need to. But here we go.
Holtzclaw grabbed the back of a wooden chair that was in the bedroom and in his way, so he moved it, but allegedly kept one hand on it during the initial sex act. She said Holtzclaw exposed his penis through the fly of his uniform pants. She commented that his gun kept, quote, slapping me in the face, end quote. She said Holtzclaw moved it at her request. Grate commented that Holtzclaw's penis was, quote, unquote, unclean, referring to hairs and such. She said she wiped her mouth after she started performing oral sex because of those hairs, and then wiped her hand on the back of the chair. At some point, Holtzclaw told her to stop and to lay back on the bed. Grate has no recollection as to what she was wearing, but doesn't remember taking any clothes off, so she assumes she was wearing a dress with no underwear. Grate says she was also fearful of getting anything on the comforter and upsetting her boyfriend, so she moved it back. She said that Holtzclaw had her scoot to the edge of the bed so that it would be easier for him to have vaginal sex with her. Grate also mentioned that she grabbed the wooden running board of the bed with the same hand she had previously wiped her mouth with. Grate said he then began having vaginal intercourse with her, and she specifically pointed out he wasn't wearing a condom. In fact, she told Detective Davis that most of her prostitution customers don't wear condoms. At the point when Grate says she's confident Officer Holtzclaw ejaculated, she said she thought she heard her boyfriend Will come home. She exclaimed to Holtzclaw, "I think I hear the front door." Nobody was there, but Holtzclaw stopped, got off of her, zipped himself back up, went downstairs, and left. She said the entire encounter at her house lasted at least 30 minutes. Grate said after Holtzclaw left, and since he had ejaculated inside of her, she used a hand towel she found in the closet to clean herself. She then tossed a soiled rag back into the closet. She even remembered it was a dishcloth, most likely white with a blue stripe. Detective Davis makes a note that there should be Holtzclaw's DNA on the chair, the bed rail or box springs cover, and the discarded rag. She asked Grate about the bedding itself, but Grate insists it's been washed at least twice. Although Grate's boyfriend, Will, had not apparently come home at that point, he allegedly did so not long after the officer left. She claims she told Will what had happened and that Will wasn't very happy about it, and claimed that this wouldn't have happened had she not relapsed. Grate mentions that the couple who live across the street may have seen Officer Holtzclaw or his patrol car parked at her house. Detective Davis makes another note to try and contact the neighbor. Grate told the detectives that that was the first time that she had ever encountered Officer Holtzclaw, but it wasn't the last. She said that not too long after the rape, she was walking back from buying dope with a male friend who goes by the street name Eastside. They had just bought some crack cocaine and were headed back to the male's house. This was around Northeast 16th and Highland. Holtzclaw pulled up in his patrol car. He had his window down, and he yelled, "Hey, hey!" He was also allegedly laughing just a bit. She said he was acting like he was just some sort of normal acquaintance of hers. She said she told her male friend she wasn't going to stop, and that they kept walking. She said they went behind Eastside's house and stayed there because they saw Holtzclaw circling the block 4 or 5 times. Eastside asked Grate what was up with the officer. Grate said she told him, quote, "He made me suck and fuck him," end quote. Grate goes on to describe Holtzclaw to the detectives. He drives the all-new black patrol car. He's white, kind of Italian-looking, a real thoroughbred of a weightlifter, dark hair, all muscles, and really good looking. Detectives ended their interview of Grate by taking a buccal swab or DNA sample from the inside of her cheek. And that's it. That's her allegation. She ran into Officer Holtzclaw while high on crack cocaine and engaging in street prostitution. He took her home, followed her inside, and gave her an ultimatum: sex or jail. She said it wasn't much of a choice, so she gave the officer what he obviously wanted. And it's an emotionally gut-wrenching set of facts. Or, at least it is, if it's true. But is it? In September of 2014, Detective Davis went to the address listed for Grate, which happened to actually be her father's address in the...
Really quick, I have to say, Bates made a mistake that I happened to catch for the first time after all the times I've listened to this episode. He says in September of 2014, but it's actually August of 2014. So I just want to make that so everybody knows that listening to it.
block of Northeast 32nd. When detectives Davis and Homan showed up at the address, they met Grate's father, Johnny, and Johnny's girlfriend, Michelle. Johnny Grate told the detectives that Rosetta didn't live there. She just stopped in from time to time when she, quote, needed to rest. Then Detective Davis did something that I personally think is inexcusable. She's been told the person she's looking for doesn't even live at that address. Yet, she decides it's appropriate to tell an uninvolved third party that she thinks the person she is looking for has been sexually assaulted, and if they see her, that they should have the person call them. Now, if that isn't tainting any information you might get from that person, I don't know what is. That being said, if true, Johnny Grate says something that doesn't bode well for Holtzclaw. Johnny reportedly replies, quote, "Are you talking about that officer?" End quote. Detective Davis asked Johnny to explain what he meant, and Johnny replied. He said his daughter had come to him about a month ago and said that some cop had taken her somewhere and forced her to perform oral sex on him. There's no sugarcoating this revelation. If you believe Holtzclaw is innocent, you've got to be asking yourself, why did Rosetta Grate's father make that statement if it isn't true? And I have to admit, it caused me to pause also. It was actually one of just a few of the allegations that made me initially feel Daniel Holtzclaw was at least guilty of some of the things he was being accused of. It took getting a lot more information before I realized these allegations are not nearly as straightforward as they appear. I think Detective Davis initially and maliciously worded her police report to unfairly give more credibility to Johnny's statement than it deserves. Detective Davis, according to her official investigative report, intentionally says, quote, "I told Johnny I had received information that Rosetta might have been sexually assaulted," end quote. She doesn't say she said, quote, "I have received information that Rosetta might have been sexually assaulted by a police officer," just that Rosetta may have been assaulted. And that's important. However, up to this point in the investigation into Officer Daniel Holtzclaw, we know for a fact that Detective Davis personally sought out and handled the investigation into allegations attributed to accusers Florine Mathis, Sherry Ellis, and Carla Johnson. And in all of those cases, she proclaimed up front that she had a tip that they had been sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer. And as we know, there was never a tip, just a list that had no evidentiary basis. Are we to believe that she changed her wording in Rosetta's investigation? And again, it's important. If she truly left out the part about the suspect being an Oklahoma City police officer, that makes Johnny's reply very incriminating against Holtzclaw. How else would he have known a police officer might even be involved if Detective Davis didn't mention it? That said, if in reality she did mention a police officer, and all of the local and national news has been abuzz with the reports of an Oklahoma City police officer getting arrested for raping black females in the Northeast Side, well, it's not such a huge leap to suspect Johnny simply picked up on that and is lying. And Johnny will be caught in a lie when the criminal trial rolls around in a future episode. Additionally, remember, the detectives had to track Rosetta down. She didn't come forward, and she didn't even bother to call the detectives after they left a card and instructions with her father to do just that. But yet, she claims she did. In fact, she's adamant she did. And you can even tell by the detectives' reaction, they don't appear to believe her. Also, the detectives approached Johnny Grate on August 15, 2014, and interviewed Rosetta for the first time on August 27th in jail. That's only 12 days later, which begs the question, when did Rosetta actually learn about detectives looking for her? Was it in that short window before she was arrested, or was it actually after she was arrested and during a jailhouse phone call with her father? A phone call that would have either given absolute credibility to Rosetta's allegations or prove she concocted it after a tip from her father. There would have been an easy way to find out. Detective Davis could have pulled all of Rosetta's jailhouse calls and listened to them, but she claims she didn't. We also could have judged the authenticity of Johnny Grate's statements had Detective Davis even bothered to record her interview with him, and yet, again, she didn't. Even though Detective Davis went to that address with the specific purpose of interviewing a possible victim of Officer Holtzclaw, she didn't take or utilize an audio recorder. So, we are left with her written notes that are suspect at best. I'm putting this out there now. If they still exist, those jailhouse calls Rosetta Grate made back in August of 2014 need to be sought out and preserved.
Okay, so about that, some on Daniel's, we've tried to do that. We've tried to FOIA we've done OOR, open record requests, on those jailhouse phone calls. And I'm going to read to you, just so I say it exactly right, what was told to me. The person who did the ORRs got the runaround because at the time of the calls, the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office managed the jail. It is now managed by a private entity referred to as the Jail Trust. There isn't any way to contact the Jail Trust. This other person has called the company that provides service to the jail and found out that they never delete the calls. We will now need a court order to get them from the company, though. We could still try to find a way to contact the Jail Trust to get them through ORR. But just like so many other things, like in Wisconsin, for instance, we can't get the calls. We can't get they haven't been deleted according to the Jail Trust or whoever, but we just can't get them. Now we have to get a court order to get them. And we need those jail calls because it's very likely that between August 15th, when the detectives talked to Rosetta Grate's father, Johnny, it's very likely that he talked to Rosetta Grate in jail once she was in jail, and before they interviewed her on August 27th. So, you know, there's plenty of ways that they could have, that the detectives could have tainted or, you know, given hints or spoon-fed information to Johnny so that he could spoon-feed it to his daughter. Okay, carrying on. We can't, yes, it is hella sus, Kit. We have FOIA'd the company, but we can't now to get them from this other entity because they're not a public entity, I guess you would they're not a public nor a government agency. They're private. And so to get them, it's like with a cell phone company, we would have to get a court order to get the calls released. So, and we have time between now and post conviction, but unless they are going to do like they do in Wisconsin and hold us up for 9 months like they have Jack on FOIAs and stuff like that, then that's. But once a court order is issued, I don't think that they really have. There's no choice. They have to do it, and I don't know if the court would, put a time on that by such and such date or whatever. I would hope so, but so that's definitely going to be in the works. Yeah, for fuck's sakes is right. Okay, carrying on.
I'm now going to break down Rosetta Grate's story from my perspective as an investigator. Oklahoma City police officer Daniel Holtzclaw did in fact come into contact with Rosetta Grate near Northeast 14th and Jordan. And that stop happened on April 24th, 2014 at about 7 p.m. It was a nice evening, about 72 degrees with scattered clouds. And we know the date. Not because there was patrol car GPS confirming the stop, but because Officer Holtzclaw did what he most often does when he goes out on a subject. He radioed in Rosetta Grate's name and identifying information. Once again, he wasn't hiding the fact that he came into contact with a female that would later accuse him of awful crimes. However, if you recall, Grate claimed Holtzclaw didn't call her in to dispatch, but here it is.
Thursday, April 24, 2014, 19:08 and 11 seconds. Thursday, April 24, 2014, 19:11 and 0 seconds.
Robert Ocean, Sam, Edward, Tom, Adam, Deborah, 76, Black female.
Thursday, April 24, 2014, 19:15 and 0 seconds.
Grate comes back clear for any warrants, so when Holtzclaw finds a glass crack pipe in her purse, he cuts her a break and allows her to destroy it. I find it extremely odd that a cop with an agenda to extort sex would allow the biggest piece of evidence he has against that individual to be destroyed. But yet, she says he did. Grate doesn't provide any details as to what else occurred while Officer Holtzclaw detained her at 14th and Jordan. But we know from his patrol car GPS that he was there for about 15 minutes. Regardless, what about taking her to her house? I bet that seemed pretty suspicious to you when you heard it. He didn't try to hide that either. Not only did he call Grate in when he encountered her, he also called in to let dispatch know that he was transporting her back to her residence. That's another detail Grate conveniently left out of her version of events. But once again, here it is.
45 on 1 at 14th and Jordan. 45 is 1014 with a female of 6 Culberson. Drive starting mileage is 09. 4597 acknowledged 11.
Officers transporting individuals is not uncommon. Rosetta even testified it's happened to her several times. And when it happens, especially when it's the opposite sex being transported, officers are required to call it in. Now, Holtzclaw doesn't always do this, but he did in this case. Which reminds me of the first instance where Grate's story doesn't quite seem to ring that credible. And she definitely wants us to think she's a credible person. She even makes it a point to call out that when Holtzclaw asked her what she was doing, she claimed she was honest with him and told him, quote, "I'm getting high and prostituting." She says, "It is what it is." She says that she's been out there for a few hours and she needs to walk home. But every time she starts walking home, she gets picked up by a customer for sex, and they end up dropping her off right back in that general area. In reality, While she had been out there for a few hours, she allegedly was only picked up a couple of times. A prostitution date only lasts a few minutes. And in most cases, it's the prostitute who decides where she's going to be dropped off. But maybe her boyfriend Will's house was simply too far out of the way. That's not the case. Will's house is only 1 mile, a 4-minute drive, or a 22-minute walk from where she encountered Officer Holtzclaw. The reality is, she could have gone home any time she wanted to, and Holtzclaw most likely realized this. He probably even confronted her about it and offered a solution. I'll drive the 4 minutes and take you home so that you'll stop prostituting for the day and being out here buying drugs. But did she really even want to go home? And what are the odds she was even heading home on that day? If you listened closely to her interview, she clearly says she relapsed and she hadn't been back to her boyfriend Will's house in 3 or 4 days, and he was pissed. Whatever the case, Holtzclaw is on patrol in a high-crime area. He comes across a street prostitute who is using crack cocaine. She doesn't have any warrants. He has her destroy her crack pipe, and he thinks the easiest and safest solution is to simply take her 1 mile to her residence and get her off the streets. So he does. He also takes the opportunity to see what information she's willing to share. And she's pretty talkative. She gives up her drug dealer right off the bat, admits to being a prostitute, and shares the details with how it's all done. She also apparently lives with an older man in a nicer home, but the man has no real job. As for the purse falling off the top of the patrol car, well, that did happen. And that brings up something else that's odd, if Grate is to be believed. Not only did Officer Holtzclaw have her destroy the only actual evidence of a crime he could use against her to extort sex, but, according to Grate, when they get to her house, Officer Holtzclaw offers to leave her behind so that he can go look for a purse that he inadvertently lost. Again, not exactly what you expect from a calculated cop serial rapist. When Holtzclaw arrives at Grate's residence, he does do something, though, that's very ill-advised. He follows her right into her house. But I suggest it's not at all as Grate described it. She didn't just shrug off her purse and all of its contents being lost, and then just go strolling up to her door and just happened to notice that Officer Holtzclaw was following her in her peripheral without either one saying so much as a word as she opens the unlocked door and steps inside. The most likely scenario is that when Officer Holtzclaw ran her, which we know he did, her father's home address popped up as her residence, which is also the address listed on her now lost driver's license. As we know, she gets pulled over and arrested a lot, so the information in the system is current. But that's not the address she gives to Holtzclaw when she says she's headed home. And when they arrive, it's actually a pretty nice 2-story house with 4 bedrooms, only a block from the state capitol, and surrounded sporadically by homes in the immediate area that sell for anywhere between $200,000 and $800,000. So Officer Holtzclaw has his doubts it's really her home. And if it is, he suspects that most likely the occupants are up to some sort of criminal activity. He's learned during his stint with the Oklahoma City Police Gang Unit that you take any opportunity to investigate potential organized crime. It's one reason it's so common for police officers to ask suspects if they'll grant them permission to search their person, their car, their motel room, and even their home. And time again, those individuals willingly give permission, knowing full and well that the officer is going to find drugs, guns, or other evidence of serious crimes that are out in the open. I believe that's what Officer Holtzclaw was doing. I believe he told Grate that this address isn't in the system as her residence and asked her to prove it. So she invited him inside. And there's actually a pretty interesting story about how Grate's boyfriend came to live in such a nice home in a nice area, all without having any reportable income of his own, but I'll save those details for when it comes out in trial. Once inside, she begins illustrating her familiarity with the layout and the personal items. I think Holtzclaw took note of the sharp contrast between how the home looked on the outside and how it appeared inside. It was obvious those living there kept up the curb appeal so as not to draw the attention of the neighbors. However, once inside, the house was dark, stained, much of the carpet was threadbare, and was overall in a state of disrepair. I've posted some photos of the outside and inside of this residence on my Instagram page at Bates Investigates, or this season's Instagram page at Holtzclaw Trial. Looking around for a minute and not seeing any open and obvious signs of criminal activity, he simply left the residence, got back in his patrol car, and checked a couple of things on his computer before heading out to another location to back up an officer. Once again, patrol car GPS shows him at Grate's residence for approximately 15 minutes, not the at least 30 minutes she told detectives. Also in Holtzclaw's favor, the home is unlocked when they arrived. It belongs to another man Grate describes as her boyfriend, though he will describe her at trial as more of a roommate housekeeper at the time. Grate herself told detectives she didn't know where Willie was and that he's, quote, always home unless he's at the store, bank, or playing pool. Holtzclaw has no idea if someone is home, in the backyard, or could be walking in at any moment with a posse of thugs. Yet, he's somehow comfortable enough to go upstairs and demand sex, even though he literally has nothing to hang over her or take her to jail on if she doesn't comply. She has no warrants, and he had her destroy her drug paraphernalia. And if that's not enough to convince you, let's look closer at the seemingly indefensible evidence she claims is literally all over this bedroom. According to her version of events, the room is basically full of Holtzclaw's DNA, pubic hairs, semen, you name it. It's allegedly on a rag, on the bed frame, on the plastic still on the box springs, and all over the back of some chair. And trust me, detectives go looking for this critical evidence. According to court records, on September 3rd, 2014, just one day after Grate revealed the likelihood of DNA evidence, detectives, along with the dozen or so members of the Oklahoma City Police gang unit, descend unannounced upon Willie Carter's residence with a search warrant. According to police reports, even though Grate had previously stated the house is never locked, the front door was secured with a chain and padlock. Police claim they knocked several times, but apparently before Will could open the door, they cut the locks off and forced their way inside, confronting Will at the top of the stairs. He was understandably upset and described by police as, quote, hateful and uncooperative. They forced him to sit on the porch guarded by gang officers while detectives collected potential evidence and documented the scene. You can see the actual photos taken of the residence during the execution of the search warrant at this episode's homepage at holtzclawtrial.com. According to the warrant, Grate's bedroom was exactly as she described it. Officers removed the back of the chair Grate had specifically mentioned and collected a pair of black panties and white underwear, which I find odd because neither of those items were ever mentioned by Grate at any time. For whatever reason, there is no mention of the bed railing, box springs, or bedding being collected and tested, even though Grate was very insistent that those items most likely contained Holtzclaw's DNA. However, the chair and underwear were tested, and while male DNA was found, none of it belonged to Officer Holtzclaw, and his fingerprints were not found anywhere in the room. And what about those pubic hairs that Rosetta Grate claimed she encountered while performing oral sex on Holtzclaw? She claimed that they were so plentiful and so unkept that she had to wipe her mouth. In reality, Holtzclaw was pretty much clean-shaven all over, if you get my drift. It was part of his bodybuilding routine, something Grate would have known had she actually performed oral sex upon him. Then there's the other detailed comments by Grate regarding the alleged sex act. For starters, Rosetta has no idea what all is involved and what is under Holtzclaw's uniform. I went into detail about that in episode 4. Rosetta claims that Holtzclaw simply unzipped his pants and pulled his penis out. But we know that to do that, Holtzclaw has on compression underwear with no fly, a long t-shirt, a bulletproof vest with a flap that hangs below his groin, and his uniform shirt is held tightly down into his pants and below his waist by shirt stays that are attached to the tops of his socks. Yet, she just acts like he unzips, and there it is. Additionally, she claimed Holtzclaw's gun was hitting her in the face while she was performing oral sex. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Holtzclaw, along with every other police officer you've ever seen, wear their holstered service revolver on the side of their hip, not in front of their body or near their crotch. Furthermore, are we supposed to believe Holtzclaw was forcing women to perform oral sex upon him while his loaded service revolver was only inches from their hands, and they could have possibly grabbed it and discharged it at any time? Then there's the vaginal rape. Once again, Grate goes into details. She claims Holtzclaw had her scoot to the edge of the bed so that he could more easily have intercourse with her. That obviously means he was either standing at the edge of the bed or leaning over while in a slightly standing position, with both feet on the ground. I'm sure you can get a mental image of a standard bed frame that is high enough up that it's not an uncommon position. However, Grate's bed appears to basically be sitting on the floor. Even with the box spring, it doesn't come up to the height of the seat of the chair. It would have been impossible, or at least extremely uncomfortable, for Holtzclaw, at 6 foot 2 inches tall, to have had intercourse with Grate in that position. He would have needed to have her scoot in the opposite direction, away from the edge of the bed, for him to get in the, quote, push-up position Grate would later testify to. And what about Grate's repeated claims that she kept going along with everything because she was on probation, wasn't supposed to be at 14th and Jordan, and didn't want to get into trouble and go back to jail? This also makes no sense either when put into context. While she was on probation, there was no legal restriction keeping her from Northeast 14th and Jordan. Regardless, the first thing she does is tell Officer Holtzclaw she's violating her probation by getting high and prostituting. She even points out where she's buying her crack. And that doesn't seem like someone who is trying to avoid arrest. Yet, Holtzclaw finds no warrants, doesn't threaten to arrest her for public intoxication, and allows her to destroy the only physical evidence he has against her, the crack pipe. And none of these red flags register with the detectives or prosecutor Galen Gigger. Naturally, all of this begs the question: if she's lying about the sexual assault and rape, what would be her motive? Up front, I have to say, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, for me to relate to Rosetta Grate or really any of Holtzclaw's accusers. For one, I'm a white male. 2, I've never lived the lifestyle Grate has, and I've never suffered from drug addiction. But that being said, I can speculate, and I can base my speculation on the totality of the evidence. For one, Detective Kim Davis all but invites her to accuse Officer Holtzclaw, a police officer that by this time has already been publicly vilified by the media and his own department. They've told her up front that they think she's a victim and that they will believe literally anything she tells them. Secondly, and I don't know if you caught this during the interview, but she gives another reason as to why she may have had a very deep-seated grudge against Officer Holtzclaw. Near the end of the second interview, when Grate is saying that she might know someone else that was assaulted by Holtzclaw, she claims that the other potential victim is someone Officer Holtzclaw allegedly said that Grate was a snitch. Grate goes so far as to say he was putting her name out there on the streets in a bad way, saying that she was working as a police snitch. She said as a result, quote, "Things weren't good for me," end quote. While I may not be able to relate to Grate's lifestyle, I do know that probably the worst thing that can happen to a street prostitute and drug addict is to be labeled a police snitch. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that she was looking to get even with Holtzclaw and at the same time throw a favor to the person who had allegedly told her what Officer Holtzclaw was saying about her. And while you're trying to decide exactly how honest, forthcoming, and truthful Rosetta Grate is, you can start by asking yourself why she was in jail when Detectives Davis and Holman went to interview her in August of 2014. You might recall this quote by Detective Davis when she was commenting and audibly laughing to Grate about why she was currently incarcerated. And it wasn't just because she relapsed, like she likes to keep telling everyone.
How come you're in here now? Well, I know about you got arrested because you made a pretend phone call. Thought that was quite sharp.
According to police records, on August 26, 2014, Grate was riding in a truck as a passenger when it was pulled over for a traffic violation. Knowing she currently had warrants for a violation of her probation, she gave the officer a fake name and date of birth. While the officer was back in his patrol car trying to figure out who she actually was, Grate used the driver's cell phone to call in a fake 911 call, claiming there was a shooting in progress nearby. And the address she gave, she actually had the nerve to give her boyfriend Will Carter's address on Culbertson. That's right. To get herself out of getting arrested, she was perfectly willing to send police to her boyfriend's house and risk him being arrested, or even he or a responding officer being shot and killed. And Detective Davis? She tells Rosetta she thinks that's, quote, quite sharp, end quote. I personally don't think that either one of them are particularly sharp or truthful, and I'm not the only one. KFOR News Channel 4 reported on Grate's antics and fake 911 call. They even interviewed Grate's boyfriend, Willie Carter.
Driving near 23rd and Broadway, an Oklahoma City police officer pulls over a driver for a busted tag light.
This is EMSA. What's the address of your emergency?
Seconds later, an emergency call came into 911 to report a shooting at this nearby home.
They was like, who got shot? Where's the people? Who's fighting? I'm like, what? Man, I'm asleep. What are you talking about?
With EMSA and fire speeding past his location, the suspicious patrol officer asked the driver to hand over her phone and found the suspect, Rosetta Grate, had in fact dialed 911.
She called 911 to report a shooting at a nearby location. Well, there wasn't a shooting. It was a fake call in order to get the officer off the traffic stop so he would go to the shooting call.
She's slick.
Until recently, Will Carter lived in this home with Grate. He is not shocked by her arrest.
Because she's not a citizen. She's a criminal. She's a schemer and a con woman, and she played her last trick.
A check with the Department of Corrections shows Grate does have a lengthy criminal history, including several convictions for drug-related crimes. During a search of her car at this intersection, police say they also found 2 crack pipes. Her now former roommate says she's better off behind bars.
That's because she was getting in trouble, and she wouldn't stop. It's good for her to get off the street because she won't hurt nobody or somebody else hurt her.
I'll leave you with Rosetta Grate's boyfriend's own words about her truthfulness and character. These are his words, not mine, from that news story. Quote, "She's slick. She's a criminal. She's a schemer and a con woman." End quote. And trust me when I tell you, several key parts of her story up to this point change by the time we get to trial.
Okay, little long, especially just looking at a blue screen, but oh, excuse me. But that's just a synopsis. So this is actually episode 20 of Bates Podcasts. Episode 19 actually goes into detail. It shows the entire interview done by Kim Davis and Valerie Holman with Rosetta Grate. And it also has a second interview that she gives some days later. I can't remember if it was like a week or something later. because she's going to add, it's the second interview when she adds all of this great information about all these things that are going to have DNA evidence on them in her room. And so I just did this episode 20. Bates always has a wrap up of the previous episode. So after he tells each accuser's story, he does a wrap up of it, and he kind of puts it all in a synopsis so that it's so it's not listening to the whole story, but he's giving you facts. And he's giving you facts because he investigated all of this, because he was the investigator on Daniel's defense team. So everything that you're hearing from Bates, you can pretty much be sure that it's all factual, it's all provable. So that's why it gives so much credibility. Bates brings so much credibility, which is why I always recommend that you guys listen to the podcasts. And it's really worth it because, like I said, Bates will come back in the next episode and tell you, he'll point out little things that you may not have heard the first time around, or that might not have made sense, or that might have thought were, unnecessary or whatever. And he'll point those out to you. And if you think this little bit has been an awakening for the dishonesty and the corruption, wait till you hear, the episodes where he breaks everything down after each accuser. Now, the only thing that kind of sucks right now, I think I've mentioned this before, is that, thanks, Catnip, for posting that, is that right now we only have up to Shardarian Hill's allegations. So we do have that one, and that one is going to be a mind blower when we show you that one. You're going to, if you haven't already seen it, or if you just like the suspense and you want to wait, it's going to blow your mind. So, and then I think I mentioned before that I think that Bates isn't doing any more podcasts because everything that he's got, all of the information that he's got, the plaintiffs are trying to get it from him. They're filing court orders and whatnot to get his information. And so I think my own speculation, I think, is that he's like, screw you guys, do your own investigating. I'm not sharing anything until the post-conviction is over, or until Daniel's sent home. So I don't know. I'm curious. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments in the comments section. And like I said, I will finish editing the video. Just makes it a little more interesting with pictures and things like that. And I'll edit the video, and if I can get it done. I don't know how long you can add things to a description of a current published video, but if I can't get it done, I'll definitely put it in my Discord. And if you're not in my Discord, shame on you. But if you're not in my Discord and you're in Foul Plays Discord, I have a room in Foul Plays Discord that I will also share the link in there, and you can watch it. But you need to be in my Discord. It's still young. It's still a work in progress. But I would really like to start seeing some activity about Daniel's case and about Oklahoma in general. The corruption in Oklahoma in general. I'd like to start having more activity in my own Discord. Suggestions too, if those of you who are familiar with how Discords work and how they operate and what are the good things to have, rooms to have, whatnot, I'm open to suggestions too. So yes, the obvious lies keep adding up, and you know what, they are obvious, Robsky. They are so obvious when you hear, especially the way Bates breaks it down, when you hear how obvious the lies are, it makes you wonder, how the hell was this man ever convicted and sentenced to 263 years in prison? How the hell did that happen? But that's what we're doing now. We're all trying to break all that evidence down, all of the evidence that we do have, inconsistencies in stories and such, that prove that he did not commit any of these crimes. So yeah, I know that I can add it for, I don't know if it's 48 hours, but I think there's like a cutoff, Alice, where after so much time you can't add anything to a description anymore, but I don't really know. But I'll just finish editing it, and if I can fit it in. Ooh, I said that really well. It just rolled right off. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice because I talk so much. But if I can still put it in when I get it finished editing it and adding to it, then I will. And if otherwise, I'll put it in the Discords. So, and thank you, Kat, for dropping those links for my Discord and for Foul Play Discord. I appreciate that very, very much. Thanks, Kit. Yeah, it's my cross to bear. But I've been practicing editing the corroboration. I do know there's a couple of people over in Foul Play that are really sick of hearing about my issue with that word. I see them in the chat. They're just like, oh my God, again? Are we doing this again? I can't help it. It's just what it is. So, all right. Cherie, anything that you, thanks, Kit. I appreciate that. And thank you for coming back. And you know what? Just share this if you haven't already. Subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications, of course, and just share it. Share the videos. Tweet the videos, and help me get more recognition for this case. Rhonda Reads on YouTube. Actually, thanks, Robsky. Speaking of, for those of you who had been following along with my reading of Death and Justice, and I had been putting those in my Discord in the library, I think. Makes sense, right? I have recorded chapter 11, and I'm just editing that now, and hopefully I will have that up this next week in my Discord so that you can listen to chapter 11, and then chapter 12. I think, Cherie, was it just 12 chapters or 13? Oh, she's muted. Is she here?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I can look real quick.
Oh, it's okay. It's 12 or 13 chapters, and so I'm just about done with it. And then I'm going to go through the Discord and take out all of the text that surrounds the different chapters, and so that it's just labeled one chapter after the other in order, like they should be. First time I'd ever done anything like that, any reading and recording of a book. So and that's something I'm still practicing, and just trying to get better at. So
13 chapters plus an epilogue.
Well, 13 plus an epilogue. Okay. So those should be out by no later than the end of October. I hope I can get them done. Right now, I'll just be honest with everybody who's still here. I am helping a lot with Daniel's civil case. And so I'm doing a lot of work there. which is partly why I'm so late getting tonight's podcast up. That's a priority for me. And I want to keep my audience, I want to keep you guys informed and keep you learning about Daniel's case. At the same time, that's a lot of work that I'm trying to help out with as best I can for the civil trial. Again, that's October 22nd. And also I've been doing a lot of job interviews. I have a job now. I work 6 hours every Sunday, and that's it. And that is not paying the rent. It's not even buying gas for my truck. So I am trying to get some regular work. So I'm busier now than I have been in probably since my mom passed away in July 2019. It's stressful, but it's really good for me. It gives me anxiety, but it's really good for me. I need to get back in the swing of things. And that's why all of my stuff has just been scattered in here and there and to and fro, and, a week, 2-3 weeks, a month or so at a time before you hear from me. But I am trying to, to get more organized and prioritizing things where I can do everything, because if I just organize my time better, I can do it all. So, hopefully, it seems like Thursdays are going to be a better day for me to do the podcast regularly. So, excuse me. So at least for now, yes, this one's Friday, but it was the soonest I could get this out. So, but I'm thinking that I'm going to do them regularly on Thursdays. So I inadvertently, collided with, did this podcast tonight at the same time that a fellow YouTuber was doing their podcast, which is regularly on Fridays. And I'm so sorry, Becca, I didn't mean to run into your time for Positively Brendan. For some reason, I had it in my mind that you had changed the day. I don't know why, but I thought you changed the day. And then Alice reminded me, that Becca's is the same time. And I was like, oh. So anyway, I appreciate that, Alice. That's really nice. To know that, but I like to also have some sort of a schedule too, so that people can have an idea, of when they can expect something new to come out. It isn't for me either, Robsky. It is not. It's partly why it took me 12 years to get my bachelor's degree in college. Time management. The other part was I suck at math and I couldn't get through the math. So anyway, but if there's no other comments or any questions or suggestions in the chat, Cherie, do you have anything that you'd like to say or add or remind me of?
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and please keep following Daniel's case and learning about it.
Yes, please share the content. And I'm not afraid to beg, I guess, for subscribers, only because I'd like to have that community page, because I find it very useful when I see other people's community pages. So I would like to have that community page. And most importantly of all, the more subscribers I can get, the more we can get the truth about Daniel's case out there for others, who might think he's guilty, completely think he's guilty, just like with Making a Murderer with Avery and Dassey. I went into that thinking that these guys were guilty, that they were guilty. And the more I learned about it, and the more I heard about it, and the more I researched, and the more I read others' research and facts, and read trial transcripts and depositions and whatnot, the more I, the more I wanted to know and the more I wanted to share with other people. And I want to do the same thing for Daniel's case. But right now I'm just a teeny tiny little channel. And so I'm not, I'm learning how to make content. I'm learning how to, get the word out, but I still have a lot to learn. And while I'm, yes, I agree, Robsky, from what I've seen anyway. And I don't think she's here tonight, and that's fine because I think she also has a live that she's doing. But Claire View, who I met through the Depp and Heard trial, of course, she's offered to help me and help teach me some things and how to do end cards and beginning cards and just whatever, because I need to do those things to help my channel as well. And so, as time goes on, I'll get it, and we'll get the word spread as best we can. But I need all of you to help me do that. So if there's no other comments or questions, and I can't really talk anymore because my voice is practically gone. Thank goodness, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. And until next time, peace out.